Good morning, everyone. I'm JJ Walsh, and we have Lowell Sheppard with us from Pacific Solo. Thank
Good
you for
morning.
joining us
Good
from your
morning.
home in Nagoya, you said.
Yes, this is from a log house we built about 12 years ago on a hillside or mountainside just outside of Nagoya in Seto, where they make pottery.
Oh, nice. I'd love to visit. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Do you want to start?
Sure. As you've already said, my name is Lowell Sheppard. I moved to Japan 22 years ago as part of a deal with my wife. My wife was born and raised here. She's not Japanese, but her father was one of the founders of Nagoya International School. And she grew up in the international school, and it was her dream to raise her boys, her children, I should say, in the same school. And coincidentally, her children are also my children. So when we got married, the deal was that if she went with me to England, where I wanted to live, I'm a Canadian, but I wanted to live in England, that if she went with me there, one day I would come with her to Japan. So after 13 years in England, she basically said, it's my turn. And I said, okay. And there's much more mundane detail to all of that and processes we went through. So we moved here and put our 5-year-old and our 8-year-old both into Nagoya International School. They grew up. Um, and I was in a writing phase of my life, writing books at that time, so I could be anywhere. But also, I used to work for a sustainable development agency in Canada called Hope International Development Agency, and around that time in the mid '90s, they asked me if I would come back and work again in Canada. But I'm very committed to the cause, of course, and I said I can't because I promised my wife I'd live in Japan. But I said, let's see if we can raise some awareness and money here. So we started Hope International Development Agency Japan in the year 2000, and now that's grown, and that's taken up most of my time for the last 20 years. And we've recently hired a successor to me as executive director, so I can focus on my Pacific Solo initiative, although I'm still a volunteer in the role of Asia director, overseeing the work of Hope in other countries, but purely on a volunteer basis.
Yeah, wonderful. And the wonderful work you do with Hope International is really focused on clean water. Is that right?
Well, yes, and only because our mission is to help the neglected poor become self-reliant. And of course, water is essential to life. And the families and communities we work with can't even think of self-reliance. They can only think of survival when they have no access to clean water. And it's amazing, stating the obvious, that when there's access to clean water, it's like helium in a balloon. It lifts them. There's immediate lift. And within months, their income is tripled because now they've got better health, they have more energy. Now they have water year round, so they can irrigate. Um, and now they're creating surplus food to their needs, and they're selling it and making money. So it's really uh, been very rewarding to see the difference that a little bit of help from here makes for poor communities in Cambodia, Ethiopia, and the Philippines.
That's
So
wonderful.
we're known as a water organization, and therefore water has a big part of my thinking. Uh, but our real concern is that they become self-determining, and water provides that first step.
That's wonderful. Another water focused organization, which we've had the chance to talk to, is Robin Lewis
Oh yes,
of Mizu. And
yeah,
he created the app to find clean water sources. And he's seeking sustainability love number 20.
yeah,
And we had a chance to catch up with him. And he said his app is now worldwide.
it is.
So that's amazing.
Yeah, I've known Robin for quite a few years, and when he first came to Japan from university, and in fact, he even interned with Hope for a few months as well. And I'm a great admirer of his verve and his nerve and his creativity and his ability to bring people together. And My Mizu is just a superlative initiative.
Yeah, they're doing amazing work. I love their energy. They have such a great young team and so
Yeah.
much energy, and they've got a great presence on Instagram and Facebook. Speaking of social media, let's introduce some of your social media. So if people want to find out more about what you're doing, PacificSolo.com is maybe the main hub to check first, and then Facebook and YouTube.
Yes.
Would you like to introduce what people might expect to find on those channels?
Well, maybe I should, in saying what they should expect, maybe I should just explain how Pacific Solo came about.
Yes, please go ahead.
And I'll try to be very brief, and it's probably boring the most. But when I'm 65 now. When I turned 60, I was on my way back from Cambodia, visiting our partners there, and I had various people saying to me, are you going to retire? What are you going to do?" And I just decided when I was 60 I think I was in row 79 or something at the back of this plane, that I'm never going to retire, because retirement implies certain things, that you slow down, that well, I don't want to downplay retirement. Many friends of mine are retired, but I felt there was still too much I could still do, because I'm a firm believer that each one of us is uniquely placed to leverage our relationships, our experience, and if we can make a difference for people and our planet, we should keep on going. But I didn't quite know how all that worked out, and of course I'd have to come off salary one day and things like that. But I've always wanted to sail across an ocean. It's a dream I've harbored. It's a dream I've been terrified of. It's a dream I gave up on when I moved to Japan, because my sailing experience is so limited. And I found out you had to get a license to operate a power boat, and although sailboats aren't power boats in Japan, you got to have power to get out of harbor to sail. So it was very opaque and seemed very expensive. And then a couple of years ago, I discovered the Tokyo Sail and Power Squadron, an English-speaking, very old sailing club in Tokyo, and they made it possible for me to get my license in English at almost a tenth the price of what it would cost for a Japanese boat license school. And so suddenly this opened up to me, and I could afford to dream again. And so when I turned 64, after a few months of reflection, this was a year ago, I made 3 announcements at my birthday party, and had a birthday party at a friend's house in Shibuya, and actually sold tickets to it and had about 40 people come along. And they were all kind of curious as to what my 3 announcements were going to be, because I said 2 months earlier that I would make 3 announcements. Well, the 3 announcements were that it was time for somebody else to lead Hope Japan, because, and so I was going to, with the board, look for a successor whose particularly Japanese language ability is much better than mine. Secondly, I was going to start an ethics consultancy company called Navigate 22 in 2020. And thirdly, that I wanted to get a boat, and I wanted to do a solo passage across the North Pacific Ocean through the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And at that time, it was all words. And since 2019, March 20th, at my 64th birthday party, we have hired a successor for Hope Japan. We did launch Navigate 22 on January 1st, which was really bad timing for the first half of this year. But also, within 2 months of announcing that in 2019, a boat came my way. And I'm in a boat a year earlier than I thought I would. So the website, the Facebook page, and the YouTube channel chronicles the journey since March 2019 of preparation, my reflections, and the YouTube channel now is, I think, about 8 months old as well. And although in some ways Pacific Solo is self-indulgent and selfish, because my real compulsion is to go to the middle of the North Pacific on my own, just to consider the universe, life, and profound issues. But it just so happens I have to go through the Great Pacific Garbage Patch to get there. And so that fits with who I am, a concern for the planet and environment. And I'm not a scientist. I'm more an activist and an educator. So I want to use my journey to bring awareness to the world's oceans within the networks that I can touch. Many other groups are doing a better job of that with larger networks, but I do have a network, and I live here in Japan, uh, uh, and so I want to use Pacific Solo to bring attention to those issues, as well as issues that are more ethical and philosophical. And I have a university professor in America, leading gerontologist, who also wants to do a study on me as a senior, because I'm now technically a senior, dealing with profound solitude and life critical mental and physical tasks each day. So he wants to make me a case study. So I said, sure, because any way I can use this journey to help others, I want. But back to your question, Joy. So Pacific Solo website has my blog and a brief summary of what I'm doing. The Facebook page is what I update most frequently, and now there's Instagram as well. And the YouTube channel, we're now going to weekly episodes. We've been bi-weekly episodes. And so far that we're now into season 2. Season 1 was more about my stumbling forward in all of this vision and learning things and beginning to live on the boat part-time. Now in season 2, it's really preparing the boat and me to get out into blue water, to get blue water experience. And I aim to set sail for Canada in 2 years from this month.
So in 2022,
Yes.
June, do you have a month, or you're aiming for June?
Aiming to depart in June, and it will be weather dependent. All the advice I'm getting from those who have done similar passages, June is the month to leave, because that's when the prevailing winds will be in my favor rather than me battling against them. And I should be able to clear if I get the window right to avoid any typhoons. And the route is between 35 degrees, 40 degrees north, right across to just past north of Hawaii. And that's where Nemo North is. And then I have to avoid the Great Pacific High, where many sailors become becalmed, and then head up to the 49th parallel and to Vancouver, Canada. So all of this is theoretical, because I'm just learning how to sail. I'm learning how to hoist sails, and learning how to fix diesel engines, and learning how to do YouTube channels. And
But I think that's all. It's very useful for people as well, because you're on your YouTube channel, on your blog, you're talking about the reality of trying to follow your dreams, trying to do this challenge. So installing, a navigation system is one of your YouTube videos. How do you get your license is one of your blog posts. So I think this is really interesting for a variety of people fundraising, people interested in sailing. So yeah, definitely people should have a look and check it out. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about, I showed the route just now that you're doing. Let's talk about the ocean patch, the garbage patch, because it's such a big problem that I don't think gets enough attention in the
yes.
news.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Well, I'm not an expert on the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. I'm reading as much as I can about it, talking to others. I've had friends who've sailed through it. In fact, one of my staff workers at the time, Mayuko Tarao, in 2011, 3 months after the tsunami, and she was helping with logistics in Tohoku for Hope during that time. She was part of a 3-person crew that delivered a sailboat from Gamagori in Aichiken to Los Angeles for the Trans-Pacific Race, famous sailboat race each year. And she said every few days they would have to dive under the boat to clear debris, fishing nets. Now, some of that in the early days was as a result of the tsunami, because that was only 3 months out at that point. So I'm talking to many people, and of course, just as with climate change, you have mixed views. And it's not about the unbelievers and the believers, it's more about the interpretation of data. So I have some people saying to me, you're not going to see anything. It's just plastic that's broken down to particles that may glisten in twilight or something, or in sunlight, but you're not going to see garbage in the sea. And others say they want me to collect what brands are floating out there so we can blame the brands. And they're expecting to see pet bottles on the surface, et cetera, et cetera. I suppose I'll see both, but I'm going so I can witness it and I can tell the story in the layman's terms, and if possible, conduct some experiments for students along the way.
Yeah, I think bearing witness is a fantastic reason to go there for that alone, right? Because like you said, there's a lot of people that have disbelief or think, oh, it's not as bad as you think, or, you know, so you're going to be there. People trust you, and to have more people witnessing what's happening is definitely better. I think you're going to see a lot. There are definitely a lot of data being collected from satellite, as well as some activists are going quite a lot. So I imagine you're going to see a lot on the surface. There's a lot under the surface, of course, which you might not see. The reason this is such a big problem area, I'm showing some maps right now. Scientists have showed that it's a convergence zone because of the tides.
Yes.
You want to explain that a little bit, or?
Well, again, what I understand is that there's two gyres or gyres, depending which English discipline you're following, or vortexes. Vortexes kind of overstating it because they're not whirlpools, but they are massive circular motions of water, and that's where the garbage gets caught in. And you got one towards Japan, and you got one towards the west coast. And when you look at some of the graphics, it's almost like a pair of spectacles with the bar over top. And so I'll be sailing over that I'll be in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch for most of my journey. In fact, out of the 3 months, I suspect I'll be in it for 2 months at a time. The one over north of Hawaii and close to the North American coast seems to be the denser one, and I think that's where the initiative out of San Francisco goes to harness in bits of garbage and make jewelry, etc. out of it. I forget the name of that particular initiative. There are some risk factors with all this because it is what's under the surface that could for my boat. And there are thousands of containers every year that fall off of ships in the world's oceans. And many people ask me, have you seen the Robert Redford movie where his boat was gouged by a container? And I think the name of the film is Lost. What I would like to do is, it's on hold at the moment, but I'm launching an educational initiative called the Great Pacific Learning Project. And it's really a way to involve teachers and students to have a question they want answered by my journey. And so we were to have started to take proposals in April. All that's going to be postponed now till later in the year. And I'm interested to see what questions students have about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. I suspect and I hope that one of them will be the question I bring back water samples, where at particular coordinates, I'll take water samples from various depths and bring it back for testing and examination. So I don't know what the scientific questions are yet, but thank you for affirming the eyewitness.
Definitely. Everybody's skeptical about scientists. Everybody's skeptical about journalists, right? So as more and more people can go and bear witness to what is the reality and take photos and document it, that it helps everybody. One of the organizations, I don't know if you know GENE in Japan Environmental Action Network, and they work with Ocean Conservancy. I can't say that word, but they collaborate to have checklists, and you can check what kind of data, and then it's part of a national database.
Right.
Maybe you could do something like that while you're going through the section. Do you know Boyan Slat?
No.
Oh my goodness, he's doing some great stuff. He has started the Ocean Cleanup is one
Oh,
of his organizations,
right.
and he has created a cleanup system run by solar, and another one which is targeting rivers. So if you check YouTube, you can see a lot of his TED Talks and
Yeah, I
stuff.
do.
He's a young guy
Yeah,
doing
I know what you're talking about now. Yes.
doing some great stuff. But one of the interesting things that he said is to target rivers, because
Right.
rivers are feeding into the oceans, of course.
Yeah.
And this is somewhere that I do monthly cleanups, and we see a lot of plastic pollution from convenience stores, from our daily convenient lives in the rivers. So we try to go and pick that up once a month. And one thing we find a lot of in Hiroshima, you can see that,
Yes.
is tubes. These plastic tubes. We find these in rivers. We find these on the beaches. Do you know what they're for?
No.
Oysters.
Oh.
So the Hiroshima oyster industry is putting thousands of these tubes into the water every day. So one of Boyan's ideas too is you can clean it up. Of course, that's what he's aiming to do. But we have to find some way to put pressure on these companies to turn off the taps, right? To stop it being put into the ocean, into the water systems every day. So these tubes people have found on cleanups in Hawaii. They're definitely in the Pacific plastic patch, and they're everywhere. And the problem is, I think in Japan, a lot of people think, oh, we are not contributors to the problem. Well, I think everybody is. Everybody living a life where you're using plastic, you are definitely part of the problem, because a lot of it ends up in the water for whatever reason, you know?
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. I'm interested in those too because we did help a lot of oyster farms in Tohoku through Hope in the recovery. And I visited those oyster farms. I don't remember seeing the tubes. I'm going to check into that. And so they're plastic. They're not
They are plastic. There's long if you look on Jean, Jean, the website, they have a
right.
page where they dedicate to the kind of plastic they often find in the ocean around Japan, and it comes from Japan. So there's long tubes, there's short tubes, and there's plastic discs, and they're
Right.
all from the hanging oyster beds. So I think back in the day, long, maybe even 10, 20 years ago, they were probably using bamboo. They were probably using wood. And then the plastic revolution. Plastic is easy. Plastic is cheap. Plastic is amazing. And now it's hard to shift back, right? Because of cost concerns. I understand it's a difficult change, but man, we gotta think about it at least, right?
And thinking of your guest tomorrow, who I know and think very highly of, Cohen.
Yes.
Kind of it's a segue into the food packaging business, which is also a big problem. You mentioned convenience stores, and he provides a much better alternative to plastics, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to look forward to hearing Cohen talk tomorrow with you.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's, companies like Lush, which I often highlight in my social media. When they sent me our shampoo bars, which you have no plastic packaging, you just rub it on your head. Our shampoo bars in a kind of vegetable type styrofoam that breaks down naturally in nature. It's not plastic. If animals eat it, it's not a problem. If we start using these kinds of solutions, then we're going to start winning the fight. But until we turn off the tap or find alternatives at the source, we can't win, But I really admire where you're going, and I know there are risks involved, but I really appreciate the fact that you are going to bear witness and tell us what it's really like.
Right. Thank you. Well, it's such a massive issue and complicated. And I've always been involved in social action. I became involved in environmental action in the lead up to the first Earth Summit in Rio in the early 90s. And I didn't go to Rio, but I chaired a group that organized a rally in Hyde Park where we tried to make the world's largest human map using people, and we had cranes, and the Queen sent us a message, and one of the TV stations sent a helicopter over and taking pictures, etc. But it was then I realized that education is important, and we can't fall into the trap of a sense of diminished responsibility. That each one of us is responsible, and even though the problem is big, it goes back to my core belief. Each one of us has a peculiar vantage point to make a difference. And it's irresponsible not to leverage our uniqueness.
Definitely.
Are doing with your podcast?
Oh, I hope so. I hope there's some people listening that it sparks an idea or it inspires them to make better choices. You know, it's hard. Sustainability is hard. Change is hard. But if you are faced with a better alternative, I hope people choose it when they get ideas from inspiring people like you. Speaking of inspiration, can you introduce your book that you wrote, Never Too Late?
Well, I can do. Actually, I've written several books.
Okay.
And this was the last book I wrote, and it's several years old. But I've kind of, as I reread it, it inspired me again. Not that I'm a great writer, but the notions behind it. So it's actually called Never Too Late. In fact, this has gone into Russian, Portuguese, and French, which is interesting. And it's partly fiction, partly nonfiction. There's a story I tell that's in part a memoir, but the storyline is of a father who dies, who bequeaths his son, an economist, enough money to travel around the world, visiting all the places where his dad visited that helped form his father's life. And so the son is called Judd, and it starts with him going to the Royal Geographical Society in London, which I'm a fellow of. And my favorite room in the world is there, the RGS map room. And there he begins his journey. But it's then in sync with 10 tips of how to change the course of your life. And so it deals with an awakening. It talks about navigating that, you need to know where you're going. You need to know where you are. You need to know how to get from where you are to where you're going. And the importance of not just being a dreamer. You have to action plans. It talks about love as a core value. Of being a giver and not just a taker. It talks about one of the tips is being prepared for life's curves. My training was in theology, and one of my favorite theologians is a Japanese theologian called Kosuke Koyama, who's now passed away. He finished his life as a professor at Columbia University, and in fact, he and I corresponded a bit just before he died. He talked in one of his very unusual reflections on scripture. He made the statement, the womb is not a cube. In other words, human beings make right angles, but nature or divinity, however you want to describe it, life is full of curves. A river, even though the plateau is flat, a river doesn't go straight across the plateau. It meanders, and life has its curveballs that's thrown at us. And we have to be able to adapt. So that's what that is about. But also just the notion that it's never too late. And that's why I made my announcement when I was 64. I want to do this before I'm 70 years old. And some people ask me, aren't you scared? And I say, I'm absolutely terrified. That's what's causing me to take preparation seriously. But now quoting somebody else who said this to me a few weeks ago, that he said, it's like the fear of not doing it is now greater than the fear of doing it at my age. And so Hashtag never too late.
Very good. But that's so true about fear, right? That I mean it can stop you from doing anything. But if you stop from doing anything, you're also making a choice, right? Like people think, oh, I don't do anything, that's not a choice. Well, yeah, you're making a choice. So as you get older, it's and settled and into your routines, it seems harder to do the kind of thing that you're doing. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think I've thought a lot about fear through my life because I've worked in war zones and even just intellectually, you go on adventures and go beyond maybe what your family's comfort zones are in terms of what you think about, etc. And I concluded that fear should never be a wall. It should be viewed a doorway. Fear is not the enemy of faith. Fear is a doorway to trusting the future, trusting whatever forces you believe in your life. And so fear should be a companion that you embrace
Yeah.
rather than me you try to defend yourself against.
Sometimes in interviews with people who do adventure sports or dangerous sports of some kind, and people always ask them, aren't you scared? And the best answer I heard was, I have a very healthy level of fear, right? Like it's healthy to be scared. It's not healthy to not be scared because then you go in without preparing properly, like you said. Like having that certain healthy level of fear will keep you on your toes and make you excited as well, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about some of the blog posts that you've written. You want to introduce some of, let me see what I have here. A man with a mission. So I think that was a very key one, talking about making your lists, checking it off. Do you want to introduce a bit
Now,
about your mission, making your mission?
I don't have them in front of me, so I can't remember specifically. Was that around New Year's of this year? When did I?
2018 has been a
Oh,
year of reflection, culminating in deciding my focus for the next 20 years of my life.
yeah. So the man, and then I think I wrote that at the end of 2019, but reflected back to 2018. Yeah, I just uh, man with a mission. I made certain goals in 2018. It was a pivot year. I declared those goals in 2019, and I was it was felt satisfying and rewarding at the end of 2019 to look back and say, yes, yes, yes. Some of these have happened sooner than I thought, uh, and some have been harder than I thought. Um, but mission is important. I actually in my ethics consultancy company, I haven't been totally quiet since January 1st. We have run a few seminars called Writing Your Own Personal Mission Statement, and therefore I think about mission a lot. And when I talk to others about writing their personal mission statement, I'm saying don't let's not think about this as something you're going to use in your CV or resume where you're selling yourself. Your personal mission is something when you look in the mirror, that's what you see. You exude the commitment, the passion, the loyalty, the accompanying fear, etc. Um, and mission can be both long term and short term. And so my mission is I'm going to cross the North Pacific solo before I'm 70. Hopefully I'm going to do it before, but that's the latest age. People say, well, what are you going to do after that? Well, I'm not quite sure. I may decide to do a lap of the Pacific Ocean, but I may get to Vancouver and never want to step on a boat again. Um, but the mission drives me forward. A mission pulls you forward. I'm doing a corporate mission seminar for a pharmaceutical company in September, and they had attended some of them had attended my personal mission state seminar, and they said they would like to explore how employees interact with the corporate mission statement and where the buy-in is. So mission is important, whether in business life or personal life, but a mission shouldn't be made up to satisfy the marketplace. It's got to be created that truly reflects your mission, what your beliefs are, what your values are. Because if you don't really believe in planetary care, but that's enshrined in your mission statement, your customer is going to suss you out pretty quickly. I think I have many friends in the hotel industry. We partnered with them with Hope. They found it fairly easy early on to put on this varnish of greenness by saying, out of environmental concern, reuse your towels, don't put them on the floor, which does make sense. But of course, they had a very clear monetary gain by not washing towels every day. And good for them that they saw easy things they could do, low-hanging fruit. But you're kind of sitting there, you read the card, you're a little bit skeptical. Yeah.
Well, that's always something I check when I check into hotels. Greenwashing for me, because I've studied sustainability for a long time, is easy to spot. But I think it can be kind of a greenwashing marketing, very superficial level. So if they say, please help us with our eco initiatives by putting your towel on, or saying no new sheets every day if you're here for more than a day, but they have plastic water bottles in the fridge, or the fridge is on high, or the aircon is on high when I go in, these deflate the power of what they're trying to do. Because if they are really driven to be sustainable, it's going to come across in more than one single way, right?
Right.
Usually when I see companies that are really doing it, it's because the leadership is very enthusiastic about it. The leader or the founder is passionate about sustainability in some way. And then that transcends down. I've seen examples where they're doing it because it's fashionable, or doing it because it's kind of what other companies are doing. But if you have a leader who's passionate about it, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So you're looking for consistency from leadership right down through the policy. Yeah. And that's why the mission of the leader, he has to believe in the mission of the company.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we sense the inconsistency.
Yeah.
So I'm a believer in mission and goals and values. At the same time, you have to be pragmatic. You have to live your life. Our mission was to leave a very light footprint here with our log house. We bought agricultural land that was on the cusp of rezoning. We've kept most of it as green. But pragmatically, when we went to buy the wood to build our house, we were going to do Canadian wood. The Canadian dollar strengthened against the yen. We couldn't afford it, so we had to bring the wood from Finland. And of course, that was vexing to the environmental conscience. And then we try to compensate that with the types of trees we planted that would have a higher photosynthesis activity and emission of oxygen. So you're constantly, and even back to the Hyde Park event, that's where I learned you've got to find, first of all, the little things you can do, and then try to bring consistency into the rest of your life. So the first thing I ever did consciously in England was in the toilet cistern, the reservoir of water that then flushes down. I said, well, put a brick in and you'll save a liter of water every flush. Well, that's easy. Then I heard from plumbers, but the stuff coming off the bricks are going to ruin the pipes. Sooner, then you get into all the complexities and you have to find your way through. But a mission to do good to the planet will keep holding you forward.
Yes.
You may make some missteps and you may get caught in other flows and persuasions and arguments, but you're moving forward in that common direction.
As long as your aim is being reassessed too, and you're always aware of different options and not just, oh, this is the only option. Well, you have to do your research too, right?
And when I rode my bicycle up the length of Japan chasing the cherry blossoms many years ago, you would have your sight in the distant horizon, but then another mountain peak would appear. And so you are adapting all the time.
Yeah.
division.
Let's talk a little bit about your seminars. You've been offering on the boat or at the marina, the Yume no Shima Marina seminars. Those look really
Yes.
fun.
Yeah. So, and let me just say, Yumenoshima Marina, of course, means Island of Dreams for the non-Japanese speakers, of which number I count myself. My wife often reminds me. She told me to stop spending money on Japanese lessons a few years ago. But it means Island of Dreams, and Yumenoshima Island was built with garbage, and there's still a large recycle plant there. Now there's a park. There's a botanical garden that's powered by the heat generated from the recycle plant. And to me, it's the metaphor is obvious and wonderful that dreams can be built on past mistakes and on the unexpected destruction in our lives. There's always hope to move forward to the future. So, with that kind of metaphor, along with the marine metaphor, I offer these seminars. Not exclusively at the marina, but that is my first choice, is to bring people out there. And we rent a little room above the Tokyo Yacht Club, and we have a view of the marina, and then it can involve time on the boat as well. And the personal mission statement seminars, my focus is on the power of words. And so a lot of the day is spent talking about words that are important to them. So when people come to those seminars, they are to bring 3 words with them. And the first word they bring is a word that they love to use because it's precise. It means exactly what they want it to say. They know it conveys something. And although they may not have thought about it before, they realize, in pondering my request for a word that they use, realize I enjoy using this word. And it could be a simple word, it could be a monosyllable word, or it could be an exquisite word of some sort. Then the second word I ask them to bring is a word they've learned in the last 2 years. And when they heard it for the first time, again, they were struck by its precise meaning. They may have heard the word before, but they never really understood the meaning. So again, there was a subjective kind of, oh, yeah, it's like a little light goes on. And then the third word they're to bring is a word they go out and just find for the day. And then we have games we play with guessing who brings what word, and then they give their meanings, etc. But it's all an attempt to get people to think. Think about what they're saying, think about what they're believing, and finding the right words to express it. And it's a lot of fun. People walk away from the seminar saying the best part of that were the 3 word games. And then we talk about philosophical currents that affect the way that we think. We actually have a writing workshop to write. And then I tell some stories. And in fact, let me, if I may, just share one story that I think is profound and in keeping with your mission and mine to educate and leave a legacy for others. You've heard of Tsunami Stones?
I think so. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, a tsunami, everybody knows what that is. Everybody knows what that is. Well, tsunami stones most of them look like gravestones. Some are a meter high, some are several meters high, and they're up the coast of Japan, particularly on the Pacific side. And they are to mark where previous tsunamis came to. And I actually, with my dog, went on a 2,500 kilometer bike ride for one stage of my circumnavigation of Honshu. And I was exploring these stones. So from Nagoya up to Aomori-ken, I tried to find as many of these stones as possible. There were 2 particular I was going to see, which I knew about, but I wanted to find others along the way. I discovered most of them were more mourning stones, meaning they mourned the deaths of people who had died in previous tsunamis. But some of them are really warning stones, like the one in Iwate-ken, famous one erected in the late 1800s, where the tsunami came in and rose 147 feet. And the tsunami stone was erected, basically said, don't build past this point. I have a picture of my dog in that eye there. And in 2011, nobody died in that village, but the tsunami rose to the tsunami stone, same level. The one that's more obscure that people haven't heard about is on Miyakojima. Miyakojima, I flew over in a helicopter. It's one of those places where SOS was written in the schoolyard. And the self-defense forces were there. They were getting water in. We delivered a water filtration system so they could use pool water for drinking water. They only needed it for a few weeks. There I met Mr. Sato, one of the 3 civic leaders on the island. This is part of Ishinomaki City. And he told me that in his community, because there's also 3 communities, nobody died. And he told me why. And here's why. In 869 AD, there was the Great Joban earthquake, similar epicenter to the one in 2011. Modern, I forget the technical term, the scientists who go back in history looking at our geology, they said it was probably a 9-pointer. And so the story goes in this village, as Mr. Sato told me, when the earth shook, the village knew what to do. Again, this is over a millennium ago. They knew when the earth shakes, you go to higher ground. So I don't know whether there's dozens or hundreds, but half the village went to a nearby convenient hill. And the other half of the village went to a further, higher, less convenient hill. And from both vantage points, they watched the same phenomenon. They saw Ishinomaki Bay rise. They saw the water rush in, get higher, turbulent, destroy houses and boats below, fishing boats. But the people on the higher hill had a 360 view of the island. They saw something that people on the lower hill could not see. They saw a second wave that had circled the island and was rushing up the rice paddies, converging with the first wave at the bottom of the lower hill, and it fountained up, and the people on the lower hill were washed away. The village erected a tsunami stone that basically said, my paraphrase, if the earth shakes, don't come here, go there. And for over 50 generations, this was taught first in oral education, and then became part of local curriculum. Mr. Sato said when he was in grade 1, one of the things they did as a class, they walked up to that first hill and they read the sign and they were told the story. So in March 2011, the earth shook. Everybody knew what to do. They went to the further higher hill, and from the hill, they witnessed something that had not been witnessed in over 1,000 years. They saw Ishinomaki Bay rise. They saw it rush in, destroy the houses and boats below. They saw the second wave come in, meet the first, fountain up, and completely enveloping that lower hill, washing that tsunami stone away. And to me, it's such a profound story at many levels, not least because of the long-sightedness of those villagers, that they saved a village 55 generations later. You know, the other metaphors, they had a 360 view. They went to the less convenient hill. They went to the higher hill. They made more effort to gain a grasp of what was happening around them. But most of all, they thought of the future. And my real compulsion here, and even going back to that decision I made when I was 60 at the back of the airplane, the person's face I saw and still see is my grandson, who was born in 2011, by the way, in October here in Japan. And And in fact, when I was telling his parents my decision not to retire, this is long before Pacific Solo, and I was saying to his mom and dad, I'm not going to retire, this. And I said, and by the way, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for him. He was only 2 years old at the time. He was playing with a toy beside me. And when I said, I'm doing it for him, at that point, he put his toy down. He put his arms around my neck. He said, thank you, Grandpa. Well, I kind of tear up even thinking about it now, but it's the concern of what the 22nd century is going to be like. So that's why I've named the ethics consulting company Navigate 22. How do we navigate the complexities of today so that we leave a lasting positive legacy for my grandson and his generation who will live into the 22nd century?
Definitely.
So, personal mission statement seminar, it's those kind of stories I want to cause them to feel and think, this isn't just to get a better job. This is how I live my life and the impact I want to have.
That's so important, and it's close to mindfulness that you talk about hashtag ponder the moment.
Yes.
And you give the example of going to Nemo North.
Yes.
To,
Can I comment on Nemo North?
yes, please.
In the South Pacific, there's a place called Point Nemo. I'm not going there. It's too far away. But Point Nemo is this set of coordinates that some mathematician in Europe was able to figure out, who was curious to know where is the point on Earth furthest from land in any direction. Turns out to be Point Nemo. The closest human settlement actually is only 250 miles away, but straight up, because the space station, International Space Station, comes over. It's a place in the Pacific where there's a few hundred burials of space debris. And it's a place that sailors say is relatively lifeless because it's so far away from nutrient runoff of rivers that they don't see much sea life there, at least near the surface. And so it kind of fascinated me, and I thought, that's too far for me. That's way beyond anything I can ponder. But I want to go to the place in the North Pacific that's furthest from land in any direction. And it's that goal that's for myself, because I do want to go there and ponder what humans are doing to a planet that should be called ocean, not Earth. Also, to Immanuel Kant talked about, he said, nothing evokes more reverence and awe than looking to the expanse above and the mysteries within. And I'm going to add to that, and the terrors below. And I want to see the stars, and I want to look inwardly, and I want to do all this before I die, to be in that place of solitude and reverence, and to ponder these themes. So pondering the profound is important in life.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds like a great goal, something you want to do, your bucket list. And in the Ponder the Moment section, you talk about seeking that solo moment, that part when you're on your own, and how in many ways you can connect that to social distancing and what people are going through now with COVID, and it seems even more relevant in some ways, right?
Yes. Although I felt a bit, I've been lucky the last 3 months because my social distancing has either been on my boat or in our log house where there's just two of us in a fairly large piece of agricultural land, or in a hybrid car going between the two. And so I've lived in a nice bubble, and I realize others, like my mother, who did not see anybody or had human contact. She saw them as they delivered food to the door, but for 6 weeks she had no human touch. I heard an interesting term, and no doubt you've heard it. I only heard it yesterday, referring to how the planet has benefited from this diminished human activity the last couple of months. And the term was anthropause.
I
Pause and
haven't heard that. Atropause.
Anthro has an anthropause.
Anthropos, yeah.
So it's a pause in human activity. And of course, it has not been a complete pause. But I have a friend, an Italian lady who's not an intern, a volunteer with Hope. Her parents are near Venice, and she's been worried about them. But they've reported dolphins are back in the canals of Venice.
Yeah.
We've heard stories of birds and other things, and so there's always a silver lining.
There is a silver lining, but we have to keep going. And
Yes.
that's a difficult thing working in the tourism industry, is the dependence on cheap flights and mass numbers coming in. Well, hopefully sustainable tourism is the way forward, and more meaningful, valuable travel. And you have to spend more money, but it'll be such a much more amazing experience. And so I think being mindful, pondering the moment, this is all part of sustainability in lifestyle as well as travel, and what you're doing. We have 4 minutes left. Do you want to talk about anything in particular? I would love to know more about the technical things about living on a boat, how long it's going to take you. How long do you expect this journey to take you?
If all goes well, I should do it within 2 months, but it could easily be 3 months. I got a provision for 4 months.
So talking about provisions, of course, you have to survive water and food.
Yes.
So how do you have to carry all your own water, or do you have water catchment system?
I'll have a water catchment system, of course, and I'm still kind of undecided whether I'll get a water maker or not, where you can desalinate the water. Most cruisers have that. I could carry enough water to last me. I could survive on 2 liters of water a day. I probably need 5. I will wash my dishes in seawater and then just rinse with fresh water. I will shower in seawater and then rinse with fresh water. So there's ways, and I'm learning so much from other sailing channels, because I have my own YouTube sailing channel where I'm chronicling all this. In fact, I had a sailor from Hong Kong write me last month. He says, I love your sailing channel because most sailors, they're just fully confident. They know what they're doing. They don't like to display any sense that they've made a mistake, whereas you're showing all your blunders. Yeah. I said, well,
no, I like that. And then there's a lot more people may get into sailing because watching you. Whereas if they watch an expert, it's too high of a hurdle, right?
Yeah. So I've got all the technical challenges. I've got financial challenges because I'm now technically only on a pension. So I'm just running my first Kickstarter campaign at the moment to buy the self-steering system. So I don't have to rely on electricity to run the auto helm. It is that thing that's standing up at the back. I'm having to, and I have a collaborator with the YouTube channel, Ryan Seal, who a volunteer filmmaker for Hope for many years. He's now in LA, but he does the editing for me.
What's his name? Ryan?
Ryan Seal.
Seal
Visuals, and he's a great collaborator with me on this. We're starting to go to weekly videos now. But I'm loving learning, and there's been moments where I thought this is now too much for me, but I was able to get through the moment emotionally. For the big typhoon in October, I stayed on the boat overnight, even though we weren't out to sea. And that was pretty wild. The YouTube episode that has more views than anyone else is the YouTube episode, Top 10 Questions I've Been Asked. This was last October. And the number one question, which you haven't asked, which is fine, but that is the most common question, is what does your wife think of this? One person asked me, does she like you? Like, is she trying to get rid of you?
She's obviously supportive. I have a supportive partner as well. So nice. I know you would not have gotten this far if she was not on board.
Indeed. But listen, thank you. You're inspiring what you're doing. I thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much, and good luck with your mission. You've got 2 more years of fundraising and learning to go through, and hopefully anybody watching this can get on your social media and help support you just by liking and commenting and sharing your media that you're putting out. But also, please go to your Kickstarter and fund or join one of your great seminars if you're in the Tokyo area, is it?
Right, indeed.
Yeah.
6 days left on the Kickstarter.
Oh, 6 days left.
40% to my goal.
Okay. Yeah. Hard 6 days, but I hope this helps, and thank you everybody for watching. And this will be housed on YouTube, so please share and retweet and comment, and please subscribe to my channel as well. Thank you so much.
Pacific Solo.
Oh,
Thank
nice.
you.
I love it. Have a good
Thank
day, everyone. Thank you.